What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the show. Another Thursday, another episode of Simply Sessions. We've got our resident secondary hair streak in the room to be chatting us up about what's been going on this week. Lots of stuff. Some Bitcoin wins this week. A few exciting things that could have been negative turned positive. We've also got some saltiness on Twitter. We've got all kinds of, and the EU being their typical draconian selves, but we'll get into that momentarily. But first, of course, this is live. Anything can happen, so I defer to my friend Bill here.
We'll do it live.
Okay.
We'll do it live. Fuck it. Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. And thing sucks.
If you have not already, like, subscribe, share, all those things. They help a ton getting this in front of more eyeballs. I am Ben with the BTC Sessions. This is your daily session.
Hodl the Bitcoin.
Before we dive in, let's take a look at where we are in the market right now. This is TimechainCalendar.com. We're sitting at $26,931 per coin. A single US dollar will pick you up 3,713 sats. In terms of fees, next block, 60 sats per byte. If you're willing to wait a bit, 31 sats per byte. Mempool is purging anything below 8.44 sats per VByte. And then in terms of mining, 92.33% of all Bitcoin have been mined. That is 19.39 million of them. Shout out to sponsors of the show, hodlhodl.com. If you're stacking sats and you have some priorities in mind, peer-to-peer trading, instant self-custody, no KYC, this is the place to be. You can sign in, log in with nothing more than an email address. Really simple. Scroll down, choose a currency, a payment method, and an amount, and start viewing offers right away and be stacking those non-KYC sats. They do also have a lending platform in which nothing is ever rehypothecated. Check them out. Link is in the show notes. Now, when you do start stacking those sats, you're going to want to secure them rather with some of the best hardware on the market. I love everything CoinKite does. The Cold Card Mark IV is a staple of any Bitcoiner's arsenal, but other great things as well. They do the tap signer, the sats card, the block clock, the open dimes, all this great stuff. And coming soon, very excited for it. Cold Card Q1. I reserved mine. Have you? If not, head over to coinkite.com and grab anything else that I may have mentioned here. And you can use code BTC Sessions for 5% off everything in the store. If you're looking to go beyond single sig in your security setup, you can check out the assisted multi-sig program from Nunchuck, known as Honey Badger. I've done a full tutorial on it, but it's really, really easy to set up. You can do it via your mobile. You can use hardware like the Tap Signer and Cold Card and a ton of other great options out there. And once it's all set up, basically they're going to have a single key. You're going to have the rest of the keys in the quorum. They'll be your signer of last resort. But it's not just multi-sig. It has baked in inheritance planning so that you know that your sats are getting to your next of kin if anything should happen. And beyond that, the whole thing is non-KYC. No personal information needs to be given over to Nunchuck in order to make this work, which is super awesome. Sets them apart. So check them out, nunchuck.io. And finally, Start9. I'm going to get to rant about these guys a little bit at the end here because I'm excited about what's coming. And what I'm doing with my setup at home here. But nonetheless, these guys are your sovereign computing solution. You can build your entire online stack here. Bitcoin Core, Lightning, Mempool.space, Join Market. You can host your data, passwords, files, photos. You can host Nostr relays, Nostr clients. The list goes on. You can head to start9.com and they have a variety of different choices for you. From entry-level light nodes to kind of mid-tier to the really pro stuff for hosting everything. You can check them all out. Again, start9.com. With that, I'm going to stop my ranting. I need to get my buddy in here. Dude, how you doing?
See, we forked.
We did. We did. Is this the first? This is the first one since the actual live stream of the touching of the tips, I think.
Totally, 100%. And I think our videos are inverted, so the tips are on the same side.
Oh yeah. Wow.
Crazy.
Weird. I'm like trying to figure out what I need to do here to it happened before.
There we go. Okay.
There we got it. This is what it was like in the stream before.
Okay.
I think we were equally skilled when we did it right beside each other. How do we do this?
My eyes were like this like the entire time.
Yeah. That was a good time, man. It was good to hang out down there.
It was a great time, man. It was great to have you in my hometown. And, we had our little adventures, so that was a whole lot of fun. Got to meet Mrs. Sessions, which is absolutely great. My first interaction with her was her dyeing my hair, which was phenomenal.
Nice to meet you. Can you put some foils on my head, please?
But it was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was awesome. Well, I'm glad Opti obviously was in here last week. He did a killer job. So hats off to Opti for that. And now we've got the streaks are reunited. So shall we? I guess let's do a little redecoration here and get it all fancy. Shabam. Awesome. So what's been going on, man? What is top of mind this week? What do you want me pulling up here to kick us off?
Yeah, let's do with the screen share first, and we'll kind of do a little bit of an update on the separation of money and state. This is the Mika Laws. They finally passed. This was the Mika Laws or basically I'll get into it, but basically that was what Christine Lagarde, who has the famous words, if someone has an escape valve, they'll use it. Many times on TV, she mentioned the Mika Laws as like the salvation to stop or to slow down the adoption of Bitcoin in the European Union. So I'll get to it, but first of all, is a CoinDesk article for audio listeners. This is the European Union formally signed its landmark markets and crypto assets regulation into law on Wednesday, taking the bloc closer to becoming the first major jurisdiction in the world with tailored rules for the sector. The law was signed by European Parliament President Roberta Metsola and Swedish Rural Affairs Minister Peter Kullgren, alongside a separate anti-money laundering law that requires crypto providers to verify their customers' identity when they transfer funds. And that's the part that I really want to focus on. It's always under the guise of, this is for your own good, citizen. Forgive me if I'm a paranoid Bitcoiner. And after seeing how the current administration in the US has treated Bitcoin up in Canada as well, their feelings against Bitcoin, forgive me if I'm a bit skeptical, if they say the reason for passing this law is for your protection and to stop money laundering. But here specifically, I think this is going to have implications, Ben. Ben, you cover a lot of tech. You do amazing tutorials for, the latest Bitcoin gadgets and software and all this. I think this might have applications, at least for software in Europe. And I'll get to why in a second. So it says, the text, which was provisionally agreed by Parliament and Council negotiations in June 2022, aims to ensure that crypto transfers, as is the case with any other financial operation, can always be traced and suspicious transactions blocked. The so-called travel rule, already used in traditional finance, will in future cover transfers of crypto assets. Information on the source of the asset and its beneficiary will have to travel with the transaction and be stored on both sides of the transfer. The law would also cover transactions above €1,000 from so-called self-hosted wallets when they interact with hosted wallets. I want to pay attention to the words, right? They're trying to make it seem like the hosted wallet is the norm and the self-hosted wallet is the not normal. I don't know about you guys, but I've never seen that term self-hosted wallet in the Bitcoin white paper. And it goes on to say, managed by crypto asset service providers, the rules do not apply to person-to-person transfers conducted without a provider or among providers acting on their own behalf. And this part, Ben, how do they enforce that? This does not seem to me as an enforceable law. And I'll add to that and I'll say, What if you have a mobile wallet, specifically on an iPhone in Europe, right? That's a very easy target, very low hanging fruit for these bureaucrats. It's very easy for them to put pressure on the App Store and on the iOS store and say, hey, you can't do this unless you have KYC transit. You need to know who you're sending this Bitcoin to. And mind you, Apple has a history of blocking Bitcoin wallets on their app store. So they've done this before in the past. I wonder what the implications are going to be of this. But again, I think that this is, I always tweet this, Ben. I said, I'm more bullish on Bitcoin adoption in the global South than I am in the developed world, because the developed world doesn't have the massive incentive that people in the global South have, which is that double-digit inflation, right? I don't believe them. I don't think it is for money laundering and whatever. Christine Lagarde said she was putting her hopes on this. I think this is an attempt to stop or slow down Bitcoin adoption. And to use Christine Lagarde's own words, I think this is an attempt to at least try to close that escape valve, because if you don't have it closed, people are going to use it.
Dude, this is their inroads to creep into the software that we use. And we've seen little bits of this, and we've seen, I mean, I don't want to like throw too much shade here, but like we had Wasabi Wallet voluntarily, quote unquote voluntarily. I don't know what was going on behind the scenes, but I mean they basically said, hey, we're gonna use some sort of on-chain analysis in order to vet everybody entering our CoinJoin rounds. Like proactively have done that. There must have been pressure behind the scenes, but like great. You can enjoy some privacy as long as the state deems it so. So like, what is that? We also see potential pinch points for confiscation, even just with like the Ledger drama before. Oh no, we can't possibly give up your private keys. I mean, unless we get subpoenaed, and then we could do it then. But like, so in those instances with those types of services where people have information on what you're doing, that the app stores are a single point of failure, and it is terrifying. And it makes me bullish on progressive web apps, which for those unfamiliar basically means you go to the browser, you go to basically like an application style website, and then in the little settings you can say install as an app. And I literally just did this with something I'm going to talk about later at the end when I'm finishing up here. But yeah, I mean, I feel like in a world where the government is clamping down so much that they're trying to tell you what software you can and cannot run, and the alternative is using their CBDC funny money, progressive web apps are going to be we're going to return to it rather than the app store days that we have right now. Oh, you're muted, buddy.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, 100%. You can't, such a rookie mistake. You can't, you can't stop this. This is unstoppable, And then another thing also, Ben, that and I was thinking about this today, is that eventually they're going to have to reveal their cards. Mm-hmm. Eventually the White House and Europe and these countries, they're going to have to admit that they want people to use their money. Mm-hmm. This has nothing to do with the environment, as in the case of the Biden administration's great excuse. It has nothing to do with money laundering or terrorism. They want you to use the money that steals from you. Yep. Okay, period. And it's interesting, like, back here in the US, they're redefining the term. I think this is and words are very powerful. This is an update from the IRS. It says January 24th, 2023, the Internal Revenue Service today reminded taxpayers that they must again answer a digital asset question and report all digital asset related income when they file their 2022 federal income tax return, as they did for fiscal year 2021. The term digital assets has replaced virtual currencies. a term used in previous years, right? They don't want people thinking that this is a currency. This is a digital asset. You know, currencies can only be issued by the government, right? And more crazy stuff coming out of the IRS as well. For anyone who's not American, it stands for the Internal Revenue Service. It's an Internal Revenue Service to send agents abroad to fight peer-to-peer, mixing DeFi and crypto crimes. I mean, the part to me that I think is very striking is the peer-to-peer stuff, right? So it goes on to say, quote, IRS criminal investigation will launch a pilot program in June where cyber attachés will deploy to 4 continents across the globe to combat cybercrime, focusing on tax and financial crimes that use cryptocurrency, decentralized finance, peer-to-peer payments, and mixing services. I think they're going to have a really really difficult time. And I think what this is going to do is it's going to force people, as predicted in the sovereign individual, to vote with their feet. Like, this is nuts. This is nuts. The US is one of the only countries in the world where if you leave and you move to another country, you still have to pay federal income tax. Right, which is absolutely bonkers. And of course, you know, the expenditures from the federal government kind of make sense. But, you know, if people have an option to opt out of inflation, people have an option to opt out and not only vote with their wallet, but also their feet, I think you're going to see an acceleration of that for sure.
Yeah, dude, IRS is insane. I mean, Uncle Sam is crazy. He will hunt you down and shake you down to the ends of the earth. Like when I see this IRS, like the thing that plays in my head is like the Team America World Police theme song, except for it's like Team IRS and they just come and like rob people. It's crazy. And again, you're right. You're one of the only, I think there's only 2 countries on planet Earth that try to tax you regardless if you live there anymore or not. There may be a couple more, but it's like the US and then like these tiny little countries that basically just are trying to like rip off their citizens and discourage them from leaving whatever hellhole they lived in. So yeah, dude, crazy stuff.
Crazy stuff. And then so it's safe to say, right, that the US is weaponizing the dollar. They're weaponizing the monetary system, and they're weaponizing it not only against their own citizens, but also countries abroad. And then what is that going to do? It's going to force their citizens to seek alternatives, seek better jurisdictions, more friendly jurisdictions. And of course, the part that is so incredibly obvious, because humans, you know, they're intelligent people and they think and they seek other alternatives. Because they politicize and they weaponize the dollar, it's going to force countries that are hostile to the US to seek an alternative to the dollar, which means that it will threaten the global reserve currency status. This is not only just me saying this. Marco Rubio, which is a senator from Florida, said the quiet part out loud on Fox News.
All right, let's take a look.
Сегодня Бразилия, крупнейшая страна в нашем полушарии, расположенная к югу от нас в западном полушарии, заключила торговое соглашение с Китаем. Отныне они собираются торговать в своих собственных валютах, чтобы обойти курс доллара. Они создают в мире вторичную экономику, полностью независимую от
I totally didn't realize I downloaded the Russian version. I apologize.
That's all right. For our Russian viewers, they're very thankful. That's all right, though. Well, okay, well, give us the gist of it, and
yeah.
We'll,
basically, he was saying, like, he said the quiet part out loud, right? Basically, that the idea is that, you know, China and Russia, they're seeking alternatives. The U.S., like, if the U.S. keeps sanctioning these countries, that's what's going to happen. And it's like, no shit, Sherlock. I mean, you guys kind of put this upon yourself. What did you expect China and Russia to do, right? So they weaponize the dollar not only against their citizens locally, but they also weaponize the dollar against their political opponents. And obviously, whether you're a citizen of the U.S. or you're a political opponent of the U.S., like currently, like China, like Russia, of course you're going to seek an alternative. Well, at least our Russian listeners got to understand what Marco said, but I tried to summarize it as best as I could.
Dude, again, like, of course it was going to happen. Like, the second a lot of people woke up to it, the second that Russia's reserves were seized. It's like, oh, this is no longer kind of like an equal footing for everybody to use, at least as a reserve asset. That's no longer the case whatsoever. If somebody doesn't like you and what you're doing, then your assets are gone, even when it comes to being a state. And that was I've seen a couple people say this was the beginning of the end for the dollar reserve currency status.
100%. And and it was self-inflicted, right? It's self-inflicted. They abused this crazy privilege that allowed them to print a ridiculous amount of money that no one else is able to print, and they abused that privilege. Anyways, more on the good news front. This all happened this week. Incredibly bullish news. Also, shout out to Pierre Richard because he was heavily involved in this. This is Daniel Baden. He said, in the last 72 hours, and this tweet went out May 30th, he says, has been a golden spell for Bitcoin mining. Texas anti-Bitcoin mining bill, SB 1751, is dead. Joe Biden's proposed 30% Bitcoin mining tax is dead. Tether is mining Bitcoin in Uruguay using renewable energy is born, right? Here is, Pierre Richard. He says lots of wins on the Bitcoin policy side this quarter. Said the things that I just said. It says Texas will continue to be Bitcoin country. Thank you to all the legislators, staff, and stakeholders who contributed to these wins. Shout out to the Texas Blockchain Council. Shout out also to the Satoshi Action Fund. Dennis Porter played a big part in all this. And on the other side of the world, Tether, out of all people, is basically saying that they're going to start mining Bitcoin in Uruguay. Here's some information about it. It says Tether, the company behind Tether.to, the blockchain-enabled platform powering the world's first and most widely used stablecoin, announced today that it is investing resources into energy production and the launch of a sustainable Bitcoin mining operation in Uruguay in collaboration with a local licensed company. With this, Tether has expanded its reach from finance and communications to include the energy sector. Its goal is to become a global tech leader, and the latest initiative showcases Tether's commitment to energy innovation and the future of cryptocurrency. As part of this new venture, Tether is investing in renewable energy sources to support and promote sustainable Bitcoin mining, an essential component in upholding the world's most robust and secure monetary network. To accomplish this ambitious objective, Tether is actively seeking to augment its team by recruiting experts in the energy sector. This project represents a noteworthy milestone where the realms of energy and Bitcoin really converge harmoniously. So very, very, very cool. And what's interesting about Tether, and perhaps a lot of people don't know, is that because they're holding all of these, and it's not exactly they're not just holding these dollars in a bank account. They're holding dollar equivalents. So there's treasuries, equities, all that stuff. And the thing is, they make a return on that. They make like a 6 to 7% return every year. And what's the current market cap of Tether? It's in the billions of dollars. So they're making a nice amount of change. Holding all those reserves, right? Yeah. And what are they doing with that? Well, we saw Samsung now tweeting about it during the week. They're buying Bitcoin with some of those profits, and now it looks like they're supporting the Bitcoin network by getting involved in Bitcoin mining. What I find interesting, though, is that they said cryptocurrency, but then 2 sentences later, they specifically said Bitcoin mining. So that's interesting.
Yeah. It also... Again, to much to the chagrin of, say, Greenpeace and the change the code people and all of that, in that article there, it said something like 90% or high double-digit percentage of the energy down there is renewable. So it kind of like, for the people that were hating on Bitcoin for that reason of, oh, it's dirty when it's plugged into the same grid as everybody else. Well, okay, here's an example of it plugging into a grid that is a lot of wind and solar, regardless of what you think of, how efficient that is. It's the same. You're using the electricity for this purpose. So it just points out, well, if you're going to get angry at the energy mix, get angry at the grid, not at the thing plugged into it.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And Pierre Richard said it best, bro. His deadpan, like, comedic thing, like, literally holding, it's like, there's no CO2 on this. Like, and it's like, that's the misrepresentation. It's like, so what about electric cars? That's not being talked about. What about washing machines? That's not being talked about. Why is it that it's Bitcoin mining? Perhaps, maybe, perhaps, this is a crazy idea. Perhaps it has to do with the fact that Bitcoin is a threat to these governments. It's a threat to their privilege of being able to create money for free that everyone else has to work for, and the tremendous amount of power that they get from that. Anyways,
dude, it makes me wonder how much the dude from the OC got handed under the table for his faux outrage. Like,
oh man,
yeah.
Oh man. All right. Next, coming up, Ben, this is absolutely historic, absolutely crazy. This is more historic than our touching of the tips ceremony in Miami.
It just surpassed it, I would say.
Just by a little bit. I would say. So this is the Bitcoin office in El Salvador. And it says, when the author of the Bitcoin Standard met the leader of Bitcoin country, great things were bound to happen. We are excited to announce that Saifedean is joining us as economic advisor to the National Bitcoin Office of El Salvador. Welcome to the winning team, Dr. Amos. So, and Beautyon, I think, says it perfectly. He says that, and Beautyon, by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, he's the founder of Azteco. And he goes on to say, there will not be enough gold to pave the streets of San Salvador. Such will be the win of that great country. It's like a dream, astonishing. In case you don't know what this means, Professor Saifedean, Austrian school economist, that right there is a signal. Okay. Mm-hmm. Most governments are run with the economists that they breed, that they train, are Keynesian economists, right? Mm-hmm. It is unheard of that you have an Austrian school economist on the economic advisory of this country. That is unheard of. That is absolutely nuts. It goes on to say, Beautyon goes on to say, in the very rare example of an Austrian school economist who also understands Bitcoin will now be advising El Salvador where Bitcoin is legal tender. This means the possibility of mistakes being made by El Salvador are drastically reduced because literally the best economic mind in Bitcoin is working for them directly. If you imagined a dream team like this spoke the words, you would have been called delusional, but it's real. And bear in mind also that the history of fiat and economics Saifedean will bring to the table will greatly help El Salvador avoid other mistakes in other parts of the economy, further accelerating hypergrowth across the entire country. 100% Stacy and Max are historic figures. Shocking. Right here is a picture already of Saifedean literally delivering a class, and in the slide for audio listeners, it literally says, "What is money?" and Saifedean is doing his thing. This is crazy, dude. This is absolutely nuts. I cannot believe it. What are your thoughts?
I mean, can you imagine what that country is going to look like in a decade or two? Like, this is the stark contrast that a place like Singapore saw over 3 or 4 decades. That's going to be El Salvador. Like, it's gonna completely change their fortunes. I mean, they've already sidestepped the IMF and told them to go fuck themselves. I mean, that's of any major action that you could take to improve the economic welfare of your country, it would be that. And I say that strongly because I am just about done Gladstein's book on the IMF. Oof. And it is infuriating how awful the IMF and the World Bank are. Just the examples and the historical behind that. So that's step one. But then to replace all the awful advice you're getting from those parasitic organizations and replace it with advice from an Austrian economist that understands Bitcoin and literally wrote the book on it. They're going to be fucking laughing, man. They're going to be laughing. And years from now, people will say, wow, that was a very good idea.
Yep. No, exactly. It's like it's going to be so obvious in hindsight. What do you think the IMF and all the central planners, right? They're watching this and they're probably scared. I feel the fear. I feel the fear.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, there's going to be a lot of people. I've already seen, what was it? I saw some, I think it was somebody that Safe was arguing with, calling it like crypto colonialism. Like, what? Sorry, we're bringing all the freedom to you. Like, it's laughable, but it's going to be labeled. It's going to go through the again, the same mill that pumps out the garbage from the New York Times. It's gonna be New York Timesified, and but the economic reality will be in stark contrast to whatever the stories are saying.
100%, man. 100%. I'm so optimistic about El Salvador. In fact, I'm optimistic about all of the global South. Like, I think that this is a phenomenon that's going to happen. El Salvador doesn't dictate their. There we go. Roman Saifedean took a few minutes of his day to reply to a nobody like me on the Orange Pill app this morning. What a legend. I know, Ben, you're on the Orange Pill app. I'm on the Orange Pill app.
I am. Yes, I had a little meeting earlier today, just chatting with the guys, seeing how things are going. And Nat Brunel just joined up too, and she's helping out. So yeah,
beautiful.
Get OPA. It's you can link up with local plebs and everything. It's actually very useful traveling too, by the way. Like if you're in a town and you're not there for like a Bitcoin related event, even if you are, but like if you're just traveling and you're like, I wonder if anybody's around, there's always somebody around. No matter where you are, you're like, hey, are you into Bitcoin? Cool, we're best friends now. And then you just go hang out and it's like a family reunion.
I'm a huge fan. I love. Did you know that Mateo stayed on my couch in Miami?
You told me that. That's awesome. Yeah.
Big fan. Sponsor. Love those guys. Great app. Highly recommend. And I do take the time to go through them, to go through the messages and reply. Anyways, so in other news, on the regulatory front, things seem to be heating up a little bit. So actually, Ben, do you mind playing the video, the one that's not Elon?
Yes. Okay.
And it's not in Russian, I promise.
Here we go. Okay. This one will be
German.
German. Okay, perfect.
Millions of people lost money in last year's collapse of the FTX cryptocurrency exchange. But a bill that's been sent to the governor's desk now aims to regulate this kind of digital banking in Texas. Here's KVU's Darrenisha Heron.
If you're one of the millions of Texans who have invested in cryptocurrency, odds are you use an app like Robinhood or Coinbase to do so. Well, House Bill 1666 would make sure your money isn't caught up in fraud or stolen by these companies. We've seen it happen before with many digital asset providers, but notably what used to be one of the largest cryptocurrency exchange platforms, FTX. The leaders of that company are still facing litigation after being accused of taking billions of dollars from customers. House Bill 1666 would prevent that by requiring digital asset providers to maintain enough funds to ensure customers can withdraw their assets at any time, eliminate commingling customer funds with company assets, and present a report to the Department of Banking for a yearly audit. State Representative Giovanni Capriglione presented the bill and feels confident it will become law pending the governor's signature.
You will be comfortable knowing that when you invest online, when you're buying cryptos, when you're trading it, when you're selling it, that those assets are being watched, that they are being managed, and that there's an audit trail that protects those assets.
Failure to comply would lead to punishments ranging from a loss of license or criminal charges. Capriglione says cryptocurrency is being regulated all over the world, but Texas would be one of the first in the U.S. to do so. So he hopes the federal government will follow suit and lightly regulate cryptocurrency. At the state capitol, I'm Darrenisha Heron.
All right. So, okay. A couple things. Okay.
Yeah. I have many thoughts, but I'm going to let you you go.
So shitcoin exchanges have to be fully reserved, right? What about banks?
Dude, this is what Caitlin Long just fought for. She's like, is it possible that I can do a bank that is full reserve? And they're like, absolutely not. Like, what?
What about
mean,
banks?
I mean, we talked about this, right? We talked about how if they had let her run a bank that was full reserve, anybody who just literally wanted a safe place for their money would flee the other institutions, which are fractional as fuck and cause insolvencies everywhere. Is this what they're trying to do with, because obviously a lot of this shit, a lot of the crypto shit is fractional currently, obviously.
Yep. And then what is happening? So exchanges like Gemini, which like promoted themselves as being, one of the most regulated exchanges, they're regulated in New York City. So like they have to be fully backed and all that stuff and whatever. Literally Bloomberg article, Winklevi twins attempt pivot after Gemini loses money and employees, mounting market, legal, and regulatory challenges in the U.S. cloud the firm's future as it seeks an overseas reset, right? So it's just, dude, it's just so freaking fascinating. I'm not a big fan of regulation and government intervention, but again, it's going to be very hard for shitcoin platforms like Binance to do business in Texas. Texas has a tremendous amount of people, has a massive GDP, much bigger than a lot of countries in the world. So there's a tremendous amount of economic opportunity for these exchanges in Texas. But if you're not fully reserved, if this law passes, you're not going to be able to do business there. But again, I just find it so hypocritical that banks, no, even though banks do exactly the same thing, what do you think happened in 2008? And then one last thing, right? Which is none of this would have affected you if you've taken Bitcoin into self-custody. If you've taken Bitcoin into self-custody, none of this matters.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. So, I mean, again, not your keys, not your coins, hold your own keys, all that stuff that all of us know. The one thing that I want to say, and you kind of touched on it there, is these guys have gone out of their way to be insanely compliant. Like these guys have I know, like if you've read the book Bitcoin Billionaires by Ben Mesrich, I think it basically chronicles the early days of after he's the same guy who wrote the Social Network about Zuckerberg and everything. And so his second book was actually about what happened to the Winklevoss twins and when they discovered Bitcoin and they met Eric Voorhees and Charlie, God, I'm forgetting his last name. Anyways, it kind of tells their story and how you had libertarian over here with Eric Voorhees and he's doing all these different things and Charlie was off doing God knows what. And they were like, no, we have to be super compliant and everything. And they basically bent over backwards to blow the state, in order to stay as compliant as possible. They did every trick in the book to make sure that everything was squeaky clean. And they drove, do you remember the ad campaigns? The Gemini, crypto needs rules or something like that. And it's they literally are advertising how much they're going to comply. And even they couldn't make it. Even they are like, shit, we got to get out of here, man. This is crazy. If the compliance bros here cannot make it work, what hope in hell does anybody else have? The state doesn't want you just to comply. They want you dead. They want it gone.
100%. 100%, dude. I 100% agree with that. Holy cow, it is going to be a bumpy ride. And look, it goes to show you can placate these bureaucrats as much as you want. But, at the end of the day, if you succeed, it's not in their best interest. It's really not. Anyways, do you have time for another story? Because I know we're almost at time.
Yeah, we can do the last one here.
Okay, cool. I'll go through it very quickly. So Michael Saylor said the quiet part out loud. He said, this is a quote from Elon from this interview. It says, quote, pretty soon 44 billion won't be worth that much anyway. And Michael Saylor did a little bit of a troll here, and he said Elon Musk on Bitcoin. He tagged Elon on Twitter. Ben, do you mind playing the video?
Yeah, there you go.
This is a gift. It's an IOU worth $44 billion.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Well, pretty soon 44 billion won't be worth that much anyway.
That's a good point. So
Bro, it's literally identifying, the problem. Mind you, he's wearing a Doge shirt while he did that. But let's talk about why he probably feels that way. So here is the amount of cash. Tesla is a public company, so they have to reveal this. This is the amount of cash that Tesla has. Tesla has on hand. So in the Tesla cash on hand for the quarter ending in March 31st, 2023 was $22 billion, right? So let's do the math real quick and we'll use the latest inflation numbers. So we go plug in $22 billion in here into this little calculator and we multiply that by 6%, which is the last reported inflation number. And Tesla is currently losing $1.4 billion in purchasing power on a yearly basis. And that makes sense why Elon would say what he said. Now Tesla, because they make so much money, they're able to eat this. But what about the average everyday person, right? And you have your savings in an account, that 6.5%, if you're not making billions of dollars every year like Tesla, it's going to be really painful. So I suspect this is part of the influence as to why Elon said the things he said. But hey, Michael Saylor's absolutely right. Elon, you have a solution, but you gotta eat your humble pie. You gotta eat your humble pie before you take the orange pill.
I think Elon would be smart to do so now, kind of like Saylor did it. He pulled his trigger like during the last bear market, right? We were kind of starting to come back a little bit and he was stacking sats low key. And then like partway through the year in 2020 made the announcement, hey, listen, I've been buying Bitcoin. My treasury is in Bitcoin. This is the way we're going. Elon missed that train. He came in much later, kind of trying to follow along in Saylor's footsteps. And maybe he can low key, like maybe he can eat some humble pie and stack some sats here. But I'm not hopeful if he's sitting there with a Doge shirt. I don't know that he's fully learned all of the lessons that are required to stay humble and stack sats, but maybe I'll be proven wrong. I don't know.
Yeah, let's see. I think all roads to lead to Bitcoin, but someone like Elon, right? Kaiser says it best, right? Egomaniacs and Bitcoin, don't get along. You have to be humble to understand Bitcoin. You have to be like, look, maybe I can't do this better. That takes a lot of humility, and perhaps Elon hasn't crossed that bridge yet. Anyways, Ben, sorry, it's running a little late today, but really enjoyed it, and this was your Simply Sessions.
Dude, good to see you. I'll chat with you next week and have a good rest of your weekend, buddy.
Likewise, man. Travel safe.
All right, later. All right, everybody. Don't go away quite yet. We got a few last things we're going to wrap up with. Also, if you're not already, go follow Nico. Go follow him, Bitvolt7 over on Twitter. Follow Simply Bitcoin.